The afternoon sun dipped low over Maple Ridge National Preserve, casting warm golden rays across the vast green canopy. Lena Ruiz, a seasoned park ranger, was on her final patrol of the day. Her hands gripped the steering wheel of the rugged terrain vehicle, her keen eyes scanning the roadside treetops for any sign of trouble. Suddenly, at a bend on the otherwise deserted federal highway, Lena was forced to slam the brakes. Right in front of her, standing squarely in the middle of the road, was a small creature, a young lynx. Its gray coat, speckled with golden spots, shimmered under the fading light, and its upright ears twitched slightly with the breeze. Lena held her breath. From experience, she knew that lynxes were extraordinarily wary, usually fleeing at the slightest hint of human or vehicular presence. Yet this creature remained motionless, its forepaws planted firmly, its golden eyes staring unflinchingly at her vehicle. Such behavior was highly unusual. Lena turned off the engine and carefully opened the door, mindful not to make any sudden noise. She stepped out slowly, her hand instinctively moving toward her radio, ready to report if needed. The air carried the scent of pine and damp earth, but Lena barely noticed, completely captivated by the small creature before her. It showed no signs of panic nor aggression. Instead, it seemed to be waiting. As Lena edged closer, she spotted a small device attached to the lynx's hind leg, a light blue plastic tag. It was a tracking device commonly used for wildlife research. However, its design and the markings printed on it made Lena frown. This was not the kind of equipment issued by the Maple Ridge Research Center. She pulled out her binoculars from her belt and examined it more closely. Beyond the unfamiliar logo, a serial number was etched into the device, EX4582. It didn't match any internal coding she was familiar with. A flurry of questions raced through Lena's mind. Where had this lynx come from? Who had tagged it? And why did it seem to be seeking attention? Slowly, carefully, Lena stepped back, not wanting to spook the animal. She decided to call headquarters to request immediate verification. She knew that behind this strange encounter, there was likely a bigger story unfolding, one she and this tiny creature were about to become. Part of the lynx's golden eyes never left her, almost as if silently inviting her to follow. Lena swiftly pulled out her radio, her voice steady despite the unease stirring inside her HQ. "This is Ruiz. I've encountered a young lynx with an unfamiliar tracking device, requesting immediate verification. I'll send an image of the serial number and logo now." She quickly snapped a photo with her work-issued phone and transmitted it to the Maple Ridge Command Center. A moment later, Tom, the on-duty dispatcher, responded. "Copy that, Ruiz, stand by. We're contacting Western Echo Wildlife Institute. They might recognize the device while waiting." Lena stayed still, her eyes never wavering from the young lynx. It remained in place, maintaining a safe but steady distance, its gaze filled with something Lena could only describe as a blend of urgency and trust. Only a few minutes later, her radio crackled again. Lena, confirmation received. Western Echo says the device belongs to one of their researchers, Dr. Elliot Grant. He's been missing since yesterday after a solo field survey. Search efforts are currently underway. Lena's brow furrowed. She knew of Elliot Grant, a well-respected wildlife specialist known for his pioneering studies on natural rehabilitation behaviors in lynxes. If he was missing and this lynx was carrying his equipment, something was definitely out of the ordinary. At that moment, the lynx suddenly spun around and dashed toward the dense forest lining the road. Lena instinctively froze, expecting it to vanish into the undergrowth, as was typical with wild animals. But it didn't. Echo, the name, surfaced unbidden in her mind, sprinted a few meters, then stopped, turning its head to look back at her. Its golden eyes gleamed in the dimming light, sending a signal as clear as any word could. "Follow me." A shiver ran down Lena's spine. She wasn't someone who easily bought into mysterious notions, but there was a simple logic she couldn't deny. If Dr. Grant was in trouble, and if this lynx knew where he was, she had no choice but to follow. She pressed the radio command. "This is Ruiz. The lynx is displaying guiding behavior. I'm going to follow. Requesting search and rescue team to prepare for backup. I'll report my location continuously." "Copy that, Ruiz. Rescue team en route. Maintain communication every 5 minutes." Lena tightened the straps of her backpack, which carried basic medical supplies and water. She checked the multi-tool on her belt, then moved quickly toward the edge of the forest. Echo noticed her approaching and immediately continued running, keeping a safe distance, yet stopping every so often to make sure she was still following. Maple Ridge Forest, under the dimming light of dusk, radiated a mysterious beauty, but also held countless dangers. The terrain was uneven, crisscrossed with branches and tree roots that jutted from the earth like natural traps. Lena had to watch every step carefully. Echo led her not along any known patrol route, but down a faint trail barely visible to the untrained eye. Bent grass here and there, tiny scratch marks on bark. Whenever Lena slowed, Echo would stop, turn back and let out a soft, low-pitched call, a strange sound almost like an urgent reminder. About 20 minutes into the forest, Lena's radio crackled again. Ruiz, the search team is 10 minutes out from your last reported location. Keep the updates coming. Roger that. I'm still following the Lynx. The terrain is steeper, possibly entering deeper into the eastern sector. Lena took a deep breath, wiping sweat from her brow. The light in the forest continued to fade. If Dr. Grant was injured somewhere out here, every minute counted, and that small Lynx, Echo, was the only bridge between life and death. Its eyes seemed to whisper to her, "Hurry, don't stop." Without further hesitation, Lena quickened her pace, her heartbeat pounding, pushing deeper into the forest, following the trail of a wild creature, defying its instincts to seek help for a human friend. Within 10 minutes, Lena met up with Daniel, a seasoned field medic dispatched from the nearest rescue station. He carried a heavy pack filled with medical supplies, drinking water, climbing rope, and a backup radio. After a quick exchange, they wasted no time. Echo was waiting patiently just ahead, right at the forest's edge. Echo moved with the nimbleness and grace characteristic of lynxes. The path that led them down was not a marked trail, but a narrow, natural corridor barely wide enough for one person to squeeze through. Low branches brushed their jackets, and twisted roots rose from the ground like traps hidden beneath dry leaves. Darkness gradually took over, with only thin slivers of light filtering through the thick canopy. Lena switched on her headlamp, casting a warm beam of light across the silent terrain, illuminating faint signs Echo had left behind, small paw prints, broken twigs, and pressed down underbrush, all suggesting someone had passed through in a hurry. Daniel followed closely behind, stepping carefully. He whispered in awe, "This Lynx, it really knows what it's doing." "We can't afford to ignore this signal," Lena replied, her voice laced with both tension and resolve. Echo would occasionally pause, glancing back, as if to confirm they were still behind, then continue. The distance between them was never too far, just enough for Echo to feel safe and for Lena and Daniel to maintain visual contact. As they went deeper, the terrain became increasingly rugged. Certain sections were steep and scattered with loose rocks and roots. They used trees and thick roots to steady themselves. Sweat soaked through their shirts, but neither of them dared to stop. Lena knew every passing minute was borrowed time for someone injured. Roughly 30 minutes after leaving the main road, Echo suddenly halted. It froze body, tense ears, pricked. High eyes locked on something ahead. Lena and Daniel instantly went on alert. They slowed their pace, sweeping the area with their flashlights until the beams landed on a sight that made them both stop in their tracks. Before them was a slick, moss-covered rocky ledge, the ground eroded and unstable, a dangerous ravine hidden by low shrubs. One wrong step could easily send someone tumbling down. Under the beam of her headlamp, Lena spotted signs of a struggle, a dark-colored backpack tossed to the side, an old compass lying crooked in the dirt, and a crumpled map snagged in a broken branch nearby. Daniel stepped closer to examine the scene. "These are personal belongings," he confirmed. "Someone definitely came through here or fell." Lena scanned the surroundings but saw no sign of a person. Echo, now near the edge of the ravine, let out a sharp, rhythmic cry, a piercing sound that echoed through the forest like a desperate warning. Lena moved to stand beside Echo and crouched down carefully, leaning out over the edge to get a better view. She aimed her flashlight downward. Illuminated below was a narrow creek weaving its way through jagged rocks, and there, partially hidden beneath a fallen tree, was the unmistakable outline of a human body. Her heart tightened. "Daniel, there's someone down there," she called out. Daniel rushed to her side, and together they directed their lights at the figure. A man lay motionless, his leg pinned beneath a large broken branch. Even with the distance and shadows, Lena recognized the features from the missing persons file. "Dr. Elliot Grant, is he alive?" Daniel asked urgently as he began pulling medical gear from his bag. "I saw him move slightly, but he looks very weak," Lena replied, eyes fixed on the man below. Echo remained, close eyes trained on the figure. It let out another cry, this time lower and longer, as if urging them to hurry. "We have to get down there now," Lena said with conviction. Daniel nodded and quickly unpacked a coil of rope, a makeshift anchor, and descent equipment. Fortunately, Lena had received extensive training in high-angle rescues during her early years as a ranger. They made a quick plan. Lena would rappel down first, secured by a harness, while Daniel stayed at the top to anchor the line and assist as needed. Her headlamp swayed with each cautious movement as she descended the rocky wall, carefully selecting footholds to avoid loose stones. Echo sat at the edge, above its glowing eyes, following her every move with a kind of watchful concern. When she was about 2 meters from the ground, Lena jumped gently down and hurried toward Elliot. She could hear his shallow breathing faint, but there and in that instant, a flicker of hope ignited inside her. Elliot. This is Lena Ruiz, ranger with Maple Ridge Preserve. You are going to be okay, she said softly, crouching beside him and beginning a quick assessment. His right leg was fractured, his face and arms scraped and bruised, and he was severely dehydrated, but he was conscious. Elliot slowly opened his eyes, managing the faintest smile when he saw her. Echo, he whispered. Yes, Lena reassured him, her voice thick with emotion. Echo led us here, above. Daniel lowered a first aid pack. Lena swiftly stabilized the fracture, began hydration, and prepped a harness for extraction. When the rescue team arrived, they would need more hands and a proper stretcher to get Elliot safely out. Echo remained perched above, unwavering, its small frame lit by the glow of the headlamps. In that moment, it looked like a beacon, a tiny creature that had defied its instincts and led help to a human in need. That day in the heart of the wilderness, a wild lynx had done the unthinkable. It had gone for help, and because of its silent courage, a life had been saved. Under the soft glow of their lamps, Dr. Elliot Grant's condition became fully clear. He was lying on his side in a narrow crevice, one leg trapped beneath a heavy fallen tree, his skin pale from dehydration and prolonged pain, but the slow rise and fall of his chest and the weak labored breaths escaping his lips told them all they needed to know. Without hesitation, Lena moved quickly toward Elliot, while Daniel, stationed at the edge of the ravine, lowered a small first aid kit and rescue rope down to her. Stay calm, Dr. Grant. We're here to help you, Lena said gently, her voice firm and reassuring as she began a swift initial assessment. Elliot's right leg was badly swollen, showing clear signs of a fracture. His left arm was scratched and bruised, but most importantly, he was conscious and aware of his surroundings. Lena worked quickly, wrapping his injured leg with temporary splints made from nearby branches and administering small sips of water to stabilize him and prevent shock. Above, Daniel stayed in constant contact with command headquarters. The good news came through the radio. The professional rescue team was now less than 20 minutes away. With the basic first aid complete, Lena settled beside Elliot, her headlamp casting a softer light now. That was when she noticed Echo, the small lynx, sitting nearby, its golden eyes shimmering with relief, watching over the injured man. Elliot shifted slightly, managing a faint smile. Echo, he whispered. Yes, Lena replied with a soft smile. He found us and led us to you. At her words, Elliot closed his eyes for a moment, as if shedding a heavy burden. After a few deep breaths, he rasped, Last night there was a heavy storm I was surveying deep into the woods when I slipped. A tree fell trapped my leg. I tried to send a distress signal, but my radio was broken and I knew if I stayed here I wouldn't last. He paused, struggling for air. Lena quickly offered him more water, gesturing gently so he would not strain himself. After a short while, Elliot continued, his voice hoarse but determined. Echo, he was nearby. I attached my emergency locator beacon to his tracking harness and prayed he'd find his way to the main road and someone would notice. Lena blinked in amazement. You believed he would understand? Elliot's smile was faint but certain. I wasn't sure. You could never be certain with wildlife, but I've worked with Echo since he was a tiny cub. He's got strong instincts and something more. A special sense that where there are your people, there's help, especially when he's frightened. The story sent a chill through Lena's spine. How could a wild lynx, even one partially rehabilitated, react correctly to such an impossible situation? And yet Echo hadn't just understood, he had acted. Moments later, the search and rescue team arrived. With practiced efficiency, they set up ropes and hauling systems. Working in tandem with the rangers and medical team, they carefully secured Elliot onto a stretcher and slowly lifted him to the ravine wall. When Elliot finally reached the top, the portable floodlights bathed him in soft white light. A rescue medic immediately checked his vitals, preparing him for transport to the nearest hospital. Before they moved him, Elliot gestured weakly toward Lena, asking her to come closer. She leaned down, her headlamp illuminating the weary but grateful smile on his face. Thank you, and thank Echo too, he whispered. Without him, I wouldn't have had a chance. Lena squeezed his hand gently, her gaze drifting to Echo sitting just a few steps away, his small frame carrying an air of cautious hopefulness. We were just doing our job, Lena said quietly. But Echo, he surpassed all expectations. Elliot gave her a weak but genuine smile before the medics transferred him onto the waiting ambulance. As the rescue vehicle's lights disappeared into the darkened forest, Lena and Daniel remained behind for a few moments, packing up their gear. Echo still hadn't left. The Lynx walked slowly toward Lena, golden eyes glimmering with hesitation. Not fear, not aggression, just a quiet, profound connection. Lena knelt, keeping a respectful distance, and whispered, "Good job, Echo. He's going to be okay." Echo let out a soft cry, a sound that resembled a sigh of relief. Then, with a graceful turn, the Lynx stepped quietly into the darkness, vanishing as silently as he had appeared, leaving behind a memory that would never fade for those who had witnessed his courage. That day, in the cold wilderness of the preserve, a small lynx had done more than just save a human life. He had illuminated a profound truth. Sometimes, even in a world that seems distant and wild, there exist invisible threads that bind courage and trust together. News of the incident at Maple Ridge Preserve spread rapidly. Local newspapers splashed headlines across their front pages. Lynx leads rescue of missing scientist. National news stations aired short features about the extraordinary event, showing images of Echo the young lynx with intelligent eyes as a symbol of the miraculous connection between nature and humanity. But for Lena Ruiz and Dr. Elliot Grant, the story didn't end with a miraculous rescue. As the media frenzy slowly faded, they began to look deeper at what Echo had done and what it might mean for the future. During Elliot's recovery in the hospital, Lena visited him often. Between their conversations, a powerful idea began to take shape. We've always treated rehabilitated wildlife as creatures that must be completely separated from humans before being reintroduced to the wild, Elliot said thoughtfully. But Echo proved that in certain rare cases, another path might exist. Lena nodded. She had witnessed firsthand how Echo, instead of fleeing in fear like instinct would dictate, had deliberately sought human help, guiding them with clear intent. It wasn't mere reflex, it was purposeful action. From those discussions, they began building a new proposal. The Survival Link Project. This goal wasn't just to rehabilitate animals for release, but to explore the potential of extraordinary individuals, creatures demonstrating exceptional cognitive abilities who could participate in community education or assist in real-world field rescue efforts. Echo became the heart of their pilot project. He was not to be domesticated or turned into a pet that would violate every principle of wildlife conservation. Instead, they would respect his wild nature while selectively guiding limited interaction behaviors toward clear objectives: education, hazard identification, and response to distress signals. Lena Elliott and a team of wildlife biologists, animal behavior specialists, and experienced rangers laid out a detailed plan. Echo was introduced carefully into a semi-wild environment, simulated natural settings where limited human presence was carefully managed. They observed and documented meticulously. Echo recognized the sound of rescue whistles after just a few training sessions. He learned to track laser pointer signals used as guiding cues. Most remarkably, Echo showed a strong, consistent response to specially trained auditory distress signals. Every exercise was designed to avoid diminishing his survival instincts. When not in training sessions, Echo lived as a true wild lynx, hunting, climbing, hiding, retaining his natural behaviors. News of the Survival Link Project and Echo's role spread quickly among scientists and the public. Open seminars were held at Maple Ridge where Lena and Elliot presented their groundbreaking concept. "We're not trying to change the essence of the wild," Lena emphasized at a press conference. "We're simply acknowledging that between nature and humanity, there are spaces where they overlap. And in those spaces, extraordinary creatures like Echo can exist." Slowly, the community's perspective began to shift. People no longer viewed wildlife as something to avoid at all costs. Fearfully, they began to understand that coexistence based on respect and deep understanding was possible. Several schools organized educational trips to Maple Ridge. Students were able to observe Echo from a safe distance, learning about ecosystems, the roles animals play within them, and most importantly, the fragile but precious connections that tie the human world to the natural one. The most moving moment came the following spring. The Maple Ridge Wildlife Center officially inaugurated the Wild Ambassador exhibit, a special area dedicated to animals like Echo, where they would be cared for, studied, and serve as living bridges for public education. At the ceremony, Elliot, fully recovered, stood beside Lena. Both of them watched in silent emotion as Echo, now graceful and free, moved elegantly through the expansive habitat designed just for him. He's done what we only dared to dream. Elliot whispered, his eyes never leaving the Lynx. Echo has built a bridge between two worlds. Lena simply smiled, feeling a quiet pride swell inside her chest. From a moment of danger and despair, a grand idea had taken root, and it had not only changed the lives of Echo, Elliot, and herself, but had also illuminated a new path for the future of wildlife conservation. A small lynx driven by untamed instincts had become a living symbol of the extraordinary possibilities that emerge when human intelligence and wild spirit come together. Soft light filtered through the large glass panels surrounding the Wild Ambassador exhibit at Maple Ridge. The atmosphere was calm, almost academic, yet it buzzed with life as a group of students led by a guide explored the exhibit with wide-eyed wonder. Lena Ruiz stood quietly in a corner of the observation area apart from the crowd. No longer in her ranger uniform, she wore simple clothes, returning not as a guardian of the forest, but as an old friend coming to witness the results of a journey she had once been a part of. On the other side of the thick glass, Echo, the tiny lynx she had once followed into the unknown, had grown into a magnificent creature. His sleek coat shimmered under the soft lights, his movements fluid and assured, his sharp eyes reflecting the pure, untamed beauty of the wild. He showed no fear, no hesitation as the children approached the viewing area. Instead, Echo moved slowly, his gaze sweeping across the eager young faces filled with curiosity. One small boy pressed his hands against the glass and whispered something inaudible. Echo paused right in front of him, locking eyes for a brief moment, a look that wasn't of wariness, but of calm awareness, as if he was seeing the child, not merely observing. Lena smiled softly to herself. She remembered that look, the very same look Echo had given her on the highway, standing firm instead of fleeing, as if saying, "Follow me." That gaze had set into motion a series of events no one could have predicted. And now that same gaze had returned, but in an entirely different context. A wild creature silently conveying a message of trust and connection. Echo turned his head, sensing a familiar presence. His golden eyes found Lena, not through scent, not by reflex, but through something deeper, something wordless. A quiet greeting, fleeting but powerful enough to bring a lump to her throat. Lena placed her hand on the glass, saying nothing. In her heart, she thought, some beings don't need language to inspire, they just need to be trusted. Echo's story was far from over, and like so many unseen connections between humanity and the natural world, it would continue to live on in every glance, every small act of courage and kindness, slowly reshaping the way people perceive the wilderness. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you believe in the wonder and magic that wildlife brings to our world, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join us for more inspiring journeys. And be sure to click the notification bell so that you won't miss any of our special stories. Once again, thank you for being here with us.